Hello everybody. Welcome to my podcast, Beyond Perception. My name is Simon. I live in Switzerland. I'm originally German. And a brief introduction at the beginning. Thank you for joining and listening. I have been working in investment banking for 14 years until I made the decision, had the courage last year to resign and venture into the unknown. I started a company with a friend together, became an entrepreneur, but then also this evolved into becoming a trainer in consciousness, increasing awareness, empowering people over the last months. And it has been an amazing journey, which led me into discovering things I never dreamed I'm able to do. And that's also the reason why I'm doing this podcast. If you had told me a couple of years ago I would do a podcast, I would have said, never in the world I would be able to do so, because I self-identified as shy, as not confident, as even not able to have a good communication. And funnily now I'm doing this podcast exactly for that reason, as I will also share with you. But quickly, this podcast is not about me. This podcast is about beyond perception. So what does it mean, and what's the whole purpose of this? We are all born into a certain perception of reality, and that's a function of the conditioning, the beliefs, everything which we are exposed to when we grow up, forming our worldview, our perception of life. The whole problem is this perception of how we experience life is completely subjective and mostly limited. That's also why in our society so many people have self-doubt, don't love themselves, have negative thinking, also stuck in a very repressed worldview where experiences as a bit of a passenger, like a passive kind of wheel in the whole machine world, and without really having the feeling of being able to change something or influence something or create something what you really want. And here in this podcast, it's about breaking free from our adopted beliefs, conditioning our subjective perception of reality, and discover the truth. That's a big thing. Basically, the information beyond our subjective perception, which is the real key to empowerment and self-awareness, to become more objective of one's subjective experience of life so far. And that's why we're going to explore really reality, but also who we are, what's our potential from a very holistic perspective, both like intellect, left brain information, but also intuitive right brain information, without really a preset box. Yeah. For example, scientism or New Age, which is really also part of the, let's call it that way, problem of why we think, how we think, that everything is dissected into boxes. If we go to school, there's a box, whatever, like biology, mathematics, physics, language. Yeah, it's all a box. It's compartmentalized, but it's not holistic. And that leads also in a very narrow understanding of who we are, what's the world. Yeah. And in this podcast, it's really about exposing you to new information, so that you get an extension of horizon, because you're born into subjective perspective, which is based on the beliefs, yeah, the information you have received so far. And that's the first step in really a chain of kind of like a chain. The first one is what you believe defines your thoughts, your emotions, defining your decisions, which lead to your actions, which lead to your reality. So depending on how limited your beliefs are, that's how limited your decisions, your actions, and your reality you're experiencing is. And that's why new information, better information about also objective, about truth, information beyond your perception, leads you to get kind of like discover your blind spots and also understand. That's the second step. Like if you get new information, that doesn't mean so much in itself. It's also about understanding the new information, which leads you to understand literally also the illusion of many of the self-limiting and self-sabotaging mechanisms and doubts we have internalized. And if you understand it, the second step, then you can transfer it into behavior, into actions. You could also say it into wisdom, yeah, which then leads to a different reality, a different experience of life. And that's the whole point of doing this. And really, this podcast is about sharing information you might probably not have heard about before. So you really can make up your own mind. Also lead you, guide you in how to understand, how to apply these information, integrate them into your perception, into your perspective on life, to lead to a more empowered way of existence, yeah? And also waking up to our true nature, which is, yeah, literally being creators. Yeah? We have, each one of us, the capacity to influence and create the circumstances we actually want. None of us is just made to be a follower, like passive, reactionary, and that's unfortunately where we are all, most of us are in society. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, to wake us up to our true nature, yeah, which is also cooperating, which is not competing against us, which is like being amazing creative geniuses, all being communicative. We are like, in confidence is inherent to all of us. It's not something we need to learn. We just need to wake up from our limited perception on life. And this is really a broad picture of what this podcast is about. And it's especially for those people who already have done personal development, have done courses, workshops, maybe also experiences with spirituality or different other modalities. Really, those people who are already curious and seeking more, like making sense of the world, and possibly also from my experience, being a bit sick of like doing more courses, just being sold another program, and it's never enough. Like I need to do more. Like being in this wheel of, oh, yes, another program, another course will lead me to awakening, however you want to frame it, to happiness, to a final destination, and might also be a bit confused about like what's the big picture of all this, like what's the purpose of existence, like what is reality and what's my role in it and who am I, like big questions, really philosophical questions. And yeah, this is for people who are maybe consciously but also unconsciously seeking truth, understanding, making sense of the world, and also with possibly a desire or a wish to do something for a better society. And that's really like who I want to reach with this podcast. And from own experience, I was stuck in the golden cage for very long. I had a couple of challenges to overcome. First of all, in my teenage years, I had depression for several years without any self-worth, purpose, like really a very dark period, which I overcame by finding worth in achieving more stuff, which led me into the next illusion, being stuck in the corporate wheel, golden cage, if you want to call it that way, like really chasing money, recognition, reputation, which in the end never was fulfilling. And that also what led me resign last year to really start doing what I want to do, and not just what society tells me or what I learned or what, in a sense, like what I'm modeling, to the seeking for external validation. And so this journey, my journey for finding truth, awakening, however you want to call it, like to make sense of the world, has been going on for quite a bit of time. And I had a lot of personal learnings, a lot of struggle, negative thoughts, being a pleaser, obedient, like seeking harmony, and just like proving my worth in achieving more stuff. Yeah, looking back, it was like, yeah, almost a bit funny. And now I started to wake up to this illusion, and that literally I was made to believe, and basically everybody in society is made to believe it's about achieving this illusion to fixing ourselves is in the outside. And these things, self-doubt, negative thoughts, like not trusting myself, all those things have been part of my past. And yeah, and the amazing thing is they're all illusions. They're part of my, if you want, personality. But if you integrate them, if you recognize them, you can transcend them. And that's in itself is a simple process. It's a simple thing. It's not easy. Yeah, there's a difference, but it's simple. And also, like, yeah, just talking about myself like already, but I'm just saying the truth. If you have good information, yeah, suddenly the world starts making sense, and you can also start figuring out that the limiting thoughts, negative self-identification, and all the like, even all those unconscious mechanisms, there are not you, and you can in a sense take control and wake up through you. And that's also something we will discover in this podcast. What's you? Who are we? What's our true potential? And yeah, and with this podcast, there were a couple of challenges, or probably there will be still a couple of challenges coming from. What I'm aware is that possibly this podcast is not very niche. Yeah? In what I'm describing, there are lots of things to be discussed possibly. So I'm aware that it's not super niche, it's not super targeted on one specific topic, but it's under an umbrella to empower people, to lead us from victim of our circumstances, for blaming others, for thinking you cannot change anything, towards becoming a creator, a driver, a leader. When you discover the truth that each one of us can influence, can create, can change and circumstances in their life, and has the potential, the possibility to find purpose, to wake up uh, through destiny, if you want to call it, a purpose, and be fulfilled. And that's really the umbrella. Um, um, yeah, above, beyond perception, the podcast. And yeah, that's something I guess will happen over the next conversations and podcasts, to kind of like maybe also be able to communicate that message even more precise, which I'm aware it's a little bit like still a bit open. So that's something I have been struggling with, and I'm aware of, and I'm excited to see how this will turn out and evolve. And as, yeah, one of the most important things I learned, and I want to encourage everybody, it's not about perfection, it's about progression. So it's about starting, it's about doing, it's about making mistakes, because mistakes are just another step in the evolution, and there is no failure. The failure is in not doing. And that's also what I'm committed to do, give you an inspiration that everything is possible. If I can do this podcast, coming from social phobia, not speaking any word, to doing this and speaking to you, you can do anything. Yeah, that's what I want to also inspire you to do. And yeah, as a ambition or vision for this podcast, it's really about reaching millions of people, not by telling them what I think or what they should be thinking, because that's absolutely not relevant. So I also tell you, don't believe me. It's about teaching how to think, yeah, so that everybody can make up their own mind, because that's really the key to personal empowerment. Yeah? It's autonomy, to not be dependent on someone anymore who tells you, oh, this is the truth, this you should be doing, this is something, this is who you are. No, it's about discovering yourself, who you are. And so don't believe me, I'm just a vehicle to expose you to new information, and also a guide, a teacher, like through this podcast, to enable you to understand, like to make sense of things, to learn how to think, and by exposing, for example, why we think the way we think. And there is a lot of things to discover here on this podcast. I'm really excited, and some of the guests I have in my mind I would love to have here on this platform and to speak to are, of course, Brian Rose, who is an inspiration here behind launching this podcast, but then also other really independent thinkers, controversial maybe even. It's for example, Mark Passio, David Icke, Jordan Peterson, Zim Harris, Alan Watts. It can range like from all topics, but also with always with the goal to lead towards a better understanding of the world, because that's the true empowerment. And just to also share quickly the underlying values of what this is here about, it's really about truth, and that truth is objective, that you don't need an authority to tell you what is truth, but you can find it yourself, and that's a really key empowerment. It's about freedom, yeah, freedom of perception, freedom of coercion, freedom of dependency, discover your free will, discover what you actually want, wake up from programs, conditioning, but then also love in a sense, yeah, that it's what we are at our core essence, and that there's also this connectedness to all life. And that's really what I want to transmit here too, that we're all connected. And I guess that's it. Thank you very much for listening to this. I'm really excited, a little bit nervous how this will turn out. So what's sure, it will be a hell of a journey, and we will all learn together. I'm really, really excited. Thank you for listening to this, and we see soon.